Hello, good people, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History, where today we ask, what did Dee do in the month after Elvis passed away in 1977? Hi, Callie. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And we're going to start with a song. This is He Gave Us Everything. Hi, Deborah. Thank you so much for coming.
17, snow on the ground, Circle G, love all around. He bought that ranch, opened the gate, said come on in, let's celebrate. Tractor pulling through the snow, laughter rising, spirits glow. Both behind, wives and men, family fun again and again. He wasn't just a star in lights, he was the warmth in winter nights. Kindness wrapped in velvet flame, a heart that never played the fame. He gave us joy, he gave us grace, a piano song in a quiet place. From a jack to a king, in the moonlight ring, he gave us love, he gave us way. Gave us everything. Riding horses, baked so still, bridge and cross on the quiet hill. Barbecue smoke, stories told, moments more precious than gold. He asked me who I'm dating now, what I dream, what I'll allow. He cared like kin, not just a name. He lived for love, not for acclaim. He wasn't just a voice on stage, he was the soul behind the page. A man who'd sing to heal your day and laugh at midnight, lose away. He gave us joy, he gave us grace, a piano song in a quiet place. From a jack to a king, in the moonlight rain, he gave us love, he gave us grace. Circle G, where the angels sing, he gave us everything. A shadow in the night, famous face, but a heart so bright. Couldn't walk the street like you and me, so we built a world where we were free. He gave us joy, he gave us grace, a piano song in a quiet place. From a jack to a king, in the moonlight ring, he gave us love, he gave us way. Gave us everything. Yes, he gave us everything.
Thank you all for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echo. And today we're going to hear echoes from Dee Presley as we ask, in the month after Elvis passed away, Dee, what did you do? But we're going to start by meeting somebody that we've never talked about together as a group. And that's Bill Morris. And Gunn reminds us to remember Lisa Presley today. "3 years," Callie's saying, since Lisa has passed. And on screen, we can see a friend of Elvis. This is Bill Morris. And Deborah says that she was up all night thinking about Lisa and how it's been 3 years. Doesn't really feel like it's been that long, does it? In 2019, Bill Morris gave an interview. He was the former Shelby County mayor. Shelby County is the county in Tennessee in which Memphis is located. That's where Graceland is. That's where Elvis lived. Shelby County, Tennessee. And at one point, Bill was the mayor. And before Bill was the mayor, he was the sheriff. And he was the sheriff in 1968 on the night that Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in Memphis, in Shelby County, in Tennessee. And that assassination, that touched Elvis deeply as well. But Bill says Elvis and I both grew up in the same post-Depression years in North Mississippi. About the same time we migrated to Memphis. Elvis's parents knew my parents before either of us were born. So Bill's saying that back in northern Mississippi, he's not saying he lived in Tupelo, but that somehow, before Elvis was even born, Vernon and Gladys knew Bill's parents. And Bill first met a yet unknown Elvis Presley at his soon-to-be wife's high school graduation of Memphis Humes High School. So Bill met Elvis at a graduation at Humes High School, which is where Elvis went to high school. I think he's trying to say that Elvis was in the same class as his wife. I'm not positive about that. But I think that was the only time Elvis went to a high school graduation for Humes High School. Maybe he went to one the year before. But at some point, I think when Elvis is in high school, Bill's saying that's when he met him. And Bill says, I went into the Army after his graduation. By the time I came back, 2 to 3 years later, he had already done big things in the music industry. So Bill met Elvis before Elvis recorded That's All Right. So it sure does sound like Elvis must have graduated in the same class as Bill's wife, which was 1953. June of 1953. Bill says, and then I got to know him from then on. So this sounds like just before Elvis went to the military himself. Or early in the 1960s, right after Elvis himself has come back from the military. But they got to be close friends. And Bill says, we then found out we both came from the same place, which is northern Mississippi. And so it was a natural thing for us to become good friends. He was still very young. He was in his 20s. And he loved to do the things that most young men like to do. He loved his music, but he loved being home in Memphis, away from the movies, away from doing his tours. He loved to be with his friends. I'm just reading through the chat, guys, trying to catch up. David says, look at this coat that Elvis has on. Yeah, it is a heck of a nice coat, huh? It's hard to drag your eyes away from his belt buckle, though, right? He's also got an amazing pendant on, but this picture's so blurry you can't really tell. I think it might be the lion head pendant. And then he's wearing some unique sunglasses. And he's pretty cool himself if he wasn't standing next to Elvis. He's got a black leather coat on, got a red button down shirt. Looks like he's wearing some blue pants. So he would have stood out by himself, but not next to Elvis. And Callie is saying that Elvis graduated from Humes High School on June 3rd, 1953, making him the first in his family to earn a high school diploma. Absolutely. It was a huge deal. Vernon didn't have one. Gladys didn't have one. But what Vernon and Gladys did have was formal education. They didn't have the high school diploma, but they had been formally educated, which no one in their family prior had ever been before their generation, because Mississippi required formal education when Gladys was a child. And that meant Gladys got to go to school. And she was a basketball star when she was in school. I don't know if you guys knew that. They didn't have basketball courts back then. They had two big poles with baskets on them, and they'd set them out in the yard. And so you dribbled right on the grass. I think it must have been a much tougher game, but apparently Gladys was quite a runner. And Deborah says that Elvis's coat is so beautiful. And Gunn says that she's not seen a photo of Elvis where he's not beautiful. And Deborah agrees. And David's saying that this is the belt that was given to Elvis for attendance in Las Vegas it was either the International or the Hilton. But yes, I do believe that is this belt buckle. And Bill Morris, he says Elvis loved to eat, loved to go to the movies, the kind of things that the boys from the country like to do. We both came from the country. It's unbelievable how natural he was. And Bill tells us, I was a salesman. I had a very inexpensive suit on one day. Elvis calls and says, won't you stop by and say hello? So I get to Graceland, and I'm wearing a polyester suit of all things. That's all I could afford at the time. And so all the guys were behind Graceland with Roman candles and fireworks and garbage can lids, and they're shooting at each other. And I thought, this has got to be the craziest thing I ever did. But I stayed. We played. I went home and I had a suit that looked like Swiss cheese. Elvis was just a normal guy doing normal things. That always impressed me. Now, I think this is a fun story because Bill, who we can see on screen, he ends up going home with holes burnt all over his suit, his cheap polyester suit, which still was expensive to him. But it was a good time, so he still remembers it with fondness. But he says that grown men pointing fireworks at each other and trying to shoot each other with them, well, that's normal things that normal guys do. I don't know if I would put it that way, but it does sound like he had fun. I have never personally fired a firework at anyone, but I guess I have had them fired at me a few times. And Bill says, by then, I became sheriff. So after he was a salesman, at some point, he became the sheriff. And he says Elvis stayed here in Memphis as often as he could. We gave him sheriff's department protection, our service. He really got involved in law enforcement and support supported initiatives to deal with drug abuse, illegal drugs particularly. And when he wanted to go see the director of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, I agreed to make the arrangements. And we went to Washington, D.C. to meet J. Edgar Hoover and to visit with some of the guys. Now, on screen, we can see a picture of Elvis. And it says at the top, September 21st, 1964 in Memphis. Police mugshot. And it says that Elvis is posing for his deputy sheriff of Shelby County police badge. Now, something else that happened in 1964, well, that's the year that Bill Morris became sheriff of Shelby County. So now Elvis is his deputy. And that's what this picture is proving. And Callie's asking, did Elvis buy Bill a coat? I don't know. I don't know if that was Bill's own coat or if that had been a gift or what. He does buy Bill gifts over the years. I don't have any examples of them at the moment, but we might look at that someday. Now, this story that he's telling us about going to meet J. Edgar Hoover, they don't get to meet Hoover. If you happen to know that story, they do go to the FBI building, but they don't get to meet Hoover, I don't believe. Yeah, they don't get to meet Hoover. And someday I'll tell you that whole story because I've got some documents that go with it. And Callie says that Elvis doesn't look mean in the picture. Yeah, I don't know if he was trying to or not. He's not smiling, though. And Bill says, I took him to the national headquarters of the National Sheriff's Association. Elvis's question was, why can't we be members? So Elvis made every one of his bodyguards become a member. And after that, it became known everywhere he went. And sheriffs, chiefs of police, they'd invite him and give him an honorary badge. He thought it was a big thing. At Graceland, you'll see a big collection of badges all over. Elvis was absolutely a strong supporter of law enforcement. I made him a deputy when I was a sheriff. Every sheriff since that time, before he died, made him a deputy. He was a part of the guys in the sheriff's department here in Memphis. And Callie says she doesn't know if he was trying to look mean in particular. And Gunn says that she doesn't think he looks mean either. And David says he looks uncomfortable. He does look a little uncomfortable in one of the pictures. He's very casually dressed for Elvis as well. I mean, he's dressed well, but there's nothing that's jumping out that says this is Elvis clothing to me. Looks like a standard shirt with buttons, and I mean, it's a nice suit jacket. It's a nice shirt. It's just very casual, I think, for Elvis. Now, Bill has told us that sheriffs after him also made Elvis a deputy. And this is a deputy sheriff's badge from Shelby County in the state of Tennessee. It says Special Deputy Sheriff. This is Elvis's badge, number 3. You can see the 3 at the bottom. This is from the next sheriff, who was Roy Nixon, which I've always found is kind of amusing because his name is Nixon. And Elvis went to see Nixon in the White House. So this name of Nixon pops up. The other thing that pops up is Bill Morris's name is truly William Morris. Now, Elvis, he had an agency. He employed an agency in New York as an agent. Most people have a single agent. Elvis had like this entire company. It's the William Morris Agency. Now, Bill Morris here and the William Morris Agency, they don't have any relationship other than they have the same name. And they're both connected to Elvis. Isn't that odd? Bill Morris can still vividly recall the last time he saw his friend Elvis Presley. It was about 60 days before the king of rock and roll passed away on August 16th, 1977, at age 42, from a heart attack, which was likely brought on by his addiction to prescription barbiturates. That's what this article said that I found about Bill, which was done by a major news company, Fox, in 2019. So as of 2019, major news outlets were still pumping out that Elvis's death was somehow connected to these drugs. Now, you and I, if you've been watching the last few episodes, we've heard what Dr. Nick has to say, as well as other credible people in the medical community that were actually at the autopsy and who did see the autopsy records or hear it directly from Dr. Nick. And they all agree that the issues that truly led to Elvis's demise, which were the megacolon, the enlarged heart, his enlarged liver, that these were not drug induced, that your colon doesn't do this from drug use. And there was a specialist in colon problems who's still around today. He'll give speeches. And he's saying this man didn't die from drugs. But Fox News in 2019, they just stuck it into this story. Bill Morris, he says, I get a call from the house. The guys that were close to Elvis said, let's go to the movies tonight. I said, okay. I caught up with him about 11 p.m., my wife and I, and the movie had already started. Now, Bill is describing an event that took place roughly 60 days before Elvis passed away. So this would have been, he's saying, around the middle of June 1977. I haven't looked that up on the timeline to see if that's possibly accurate, but we'll go with what Bill's saying, sometime around 60 days before. Now, Elvis has passed away, and Bill is giving this memory in 2019, so it's many, many, many years later. I just want you to remember that as we move through the story, I believe every emotion that Bill is going to tell us about is real. But I feel like some have been magnified by thinking about this particular incident through the years. But he went to the movie theater, probably the Memphian. Don't really know. It might have been the one that they had the big argument between a couple of other Elvis channels about, which was the last theater that he went to. Maybe it was that other theater. But somehow Bill's at, one of these theaters that Elvis rents out and shows movies to the guys. It's about 11 p.m. He and his wife are there. Bill says, I couldn't believe it when I saw him walk back to see us. He had gotten so huge, put on so much weight. And my wife, Ann, always bugged him, sort of like mothering him all the time, because they've known each other for so many years. Now remember, Ann, she went to high school with Elvis because she graduated at Humes High School. And Bill says, and she hugged him. We all hugged each other. And everybody had tears in their eyes because he looked so bad and felt so bad. And my wife scolded him at that time. And he said, I'm going to be better. And with that, we sat down. The next time I saw him, he passed away. I still can't accept the totality of it all. He was in the casket, but I couldn't believe he was dead. He was just 42 years old. I didn't really want to accept it even then. So the last sentence that Bill says, I did not really want to accept it even then, tells us that he in 2019 still has trouble accepting it. And he remembers that Elvis had gained weight. Now, other people that were around in that point of time, they don't mention the weight so much, but others that circle the inner circle, not the inner circle itself, but those around, they seem to mention it a lot. And I think it has something to do with the way that memory works around the events. And so I think the truth's got to be somewhere in the middle, that he put on some weight or that he looked larger. Now, we know that Elvis and Dr. Nick knew that Elvis did not look slim because his intestine was enlarged. They didn't know to what extent, but they did know it was enlarged. Hi, Cassandra. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And David saying that he would have lived longer if he had not taken the drugs. I mean, that's hard to say because in the last few years, I don't think he could have lived without the drugs. They were medically necessary. People really have a hard time accepting that because of what those bodyguards said and the way that they use their drugs. But in the last few years, there's plenty of medical evidence that what Dr. Nick was prescribing to him, he needed. And it appears that the other things he sought out that weren't directly from Dr. Nick, they were all for the same things, which were a lot of it was pain medication or to try to sleep. Now, Bill told us that all the guys got to be sheriff's deputies, that Elvis wanted everybody. And why did Elvis want everybody to be a deputy? Well, that gives you the right to carry a gun in a lot of situations where you might not have one. Now, in Tennessee, it's fairly lax to carry guns anyway, but this just gave Elvis a little extra. Plus, it gave him that into the sheriff's departments, the legal organizations, which he really loved. And this is an identification. You get a badge, you got to get an identification too. So we don't have Elvis's identification, but this is Alfred DaCosta Strada, or Al Strada. It says that he's a special deputy, and it's signed by Sheriff Roy Nixon. So this is from the 1970s. But it's showing that Bill's telling us the truth about the sheriffs after Bill continued this practice of making Elvis and all of his guys deputy sheriffs. And David says that I read the text wrong, that he was saying that Elvis needed the drugs. I see that now, David. Thank you so much. And why did we learn about Bill Morris? Well, he's connected to this next story. And Bill is a really legitimate guy. And that's why they need him connected to this next story. But, well, let's just get into the story and you guys can make any judgments you need for yourself. Because we're going to look at the source material. And everybody gets to look at it and walk away with their own opinion. So if what I say doesn't agree with what you're thinking, feel free to put it into the chat, put it into the comments. Make sure that you hit the like button. Make sure that you subscribe so that you know when we are doing more of these amazing live streams where we're learning things like what Al Strada looked like. Did you guys ever see this picture of Al Strada before? This is the guy that some people, well, they have that rumor about Delta. This is what they were talking about over on, I think it was Danny's Memphis Mafia Kid channel. But this is the man. He was Elvis's attaché or valet, and he took care of Elvis's clothing. He also did security, and he was carrying a gun. That's why he's got the sheriff's department badge. And Callie says, "Is he Hispanic?" Well, I'm not really sure. I think I think so, because DaCosta, Strada, I think those are Hispanic names. He doesn't normally look like this in the pictures that you see of him. So this is kind of a unique one. And Cassandra's saying she thought Al had curly hair. He does in most of the pictures. So I think his hair is very long in this picture and it's pulled it a little straighter. And that when he cuts it shorter, it gets more like an afro look. But we're going to move over to the real story, the reason we're here. Dee, what did you do in those months, that month, right after Elvis passed away? So this would be late August, early September. Here's a picture of Bill Morris. We're actually returning to the National Enquirer. This is from September 20th, 1977. So we're back to the tabloids. And they've got an article in the National Enquirer. Now, remember that the National Enquirer, it's the one that's backing Ginger. It's got Ginger's article that she wrote. It also is the one that interviewed Dr. Nick. That's where we got the information that Elvis did know that there was a surgery available, but that he decided together with Dr. Nick that he would not have that surgery. And then Dr. Nick found later during the autopsy that without that surgery, he didn't have much longer to live because he was blocked at the time in his colon. His colon was blocked, they found at the autopsy. So we're in that same magazine. I don't think this is the same issue, but it's the same magazine. The other magazine is The Star, and they're the ones that are siding with Priscilla. And they've got Ricky Stanley's interview, and they've got that girlfriend of Ricky Stanley, maybe, or the one that says that she was with Elvis. And they've got Nurse Cock. Oh, the National Enquirer, they've got Linda too. We looked at that yesterday, Linda Thompson. So now they've also got Dee Presley. And this says, after 2 seances, rock star's stepmother reveals Elvis has spoken to me from beyond the grave. Now, this is the kind of story I would normally just pass over, but it's got a whole bunch of quotes directly from Dee Presley. And not long after this, Dee goes on TV a few times and she says some rather insane things. And a lot of people get very, very upset about them. When did Dee start having these kind of thoughts? Is this like the other myths? Was the groundwork laid right here in this month after Elvis passed away? Did this stretch back earlier? Like Priscilla, is Dee pushing out a narrative? I have to assume that there was money that exchanged hands for this article because it is the National Enquirer. And Dee says, Elvis is now reunited with his mother and brother who died years ago, and he's truly at peace. More at peace than he had ever been during his life. His message came through clearly. He is happy now. When he was alive, he was certain that there was life after death. Now he knows that it is true. He's in heaven now. And Callie's pointed out what the terrible things that Dee has said on the Geraldo show. And she definitely, I feel, spiraled out of control after Elvis's death. But I don't want to spend any time on judging anybody in this series. What I want to do is just look at what was said and see if we can't trace back patterns in the media so that we can understand where these myths started and so that we can stop them right there from their root, really. When we hear them again, we can say, we know how this started and where it traces back to. Now, everything Dee said so far is fine, except for his message came through clearly. So that makes you wonder what's happened. The magazine says, held in Memphis 2 weeks after his death, a seance was conducted by psychics Sybil Leek and Mickey Dane, who joined Dee, the superstar's cousin, Tony Smith, age 24, and Dr. H. Dix Archer, minister of the Contemporary Community Church in Memphis, who acted as an independent witness. Callie says that Elvis didn't like Dee and that she doesn't believe anything Dee says. So, who do we have here? We got two psychics, Sybil Leek and Mickey Dane. I feel like we heard about them in one of the previous psychic articles, but I forgot to look. So, I got to go back and check that. And we've got this Tony Smith guy, Elvis's cousin, age 24. I've never heard of Tony Smith. Have any of you ever heard of Tony Smith? I'm not saying he's not a cousin of Elvis's, but I've never heard of him playing a part in any of the Elvis stories or of being listed as having been anywhere around Elvis. And Gunn says that she'd rather think of Dee as Elvis's father's wife than as Elvis's stepmother. That's an interesting point because the magazines would prefer that you think of her as the stepmother because that's what they push, as well as it's just like with Priscilla with the ex-wife or widow, and they keep pushing the widow. And Deborah says that she might have had a few noodles loose. So this other guy, this Dr. H. Dix Archer, I haven't heard of him either. I don't know how he connects to any Elvis story or why would we believe that he was an independent witness. But in the darkened room, lighted only by the flickering flame from a single candle, Sybil told Dee, Elvis tells me he is now reunited with his mother and he's at peace. The guiding spirit that helped him there was his twin brother Jesse, who died at birth. Sybil could not see their physical forms, but she said she could see, quote, 3 rays of light coming together to form a triangle, representing Elvis's brother and their mother. So what we've got going on here is a seance that I believe the Inquirer paid for, and that Dee is participating in, and that she's brought in some member of the Smith family to give it legitimacy. And this is, I believe, the second seance that she's done. The magazine says, then Mickey said that through her, Elvis's spirit sent Dee this message. quote, "My mother reached out and we are all together," end quote. Mickey says, "I've never felt anything like this in my life. Elvis was speaking through me. I was able to see him and his mother. It was utterly incredible. She was dressed in white and looked radiant. He stood beside her and looked younger and more handsome than he had in real life." When the seance ended, Elvis's cousin Tony Smith declared, quote, "I felt Elvis's presence tonight. I felt very heavy vibrations from him. It was amazing," end quote. So Tony Smith, who I don't think any of us know, he says he felt Elvis there. I don't know why we would feel like that meant something to us because we don't know him. I mean, he's not ever been mentioned. If it was Billy Smith, I mean, that would be different. And this says the seance followed an earlier one. So this is the second one, which left Dee totally convinced that Elvis's spirit had told her things only the singer could have known. Attending the first seance was Dee, Elvis's 23-year-old stepbrother, Rick Stanley, and 3 psychics, Gypsy Markoff, Mickey Dane, and Mickey's daughter Jill. Former Shelby County Sheriff William Morris of Memphis, who was Elvis's good friend, came as an independent observer. So here we have this very legitimate Sheriff Bill Morris, who does seem to have a lengthy history with Elvis. And he's participating in this seance. Now, it's as an independent observer, but I mean, that's still participation, right? Do the participants get paid? I mean, I feel like Dee's getting paid. I feel like the psychics are getting paid. I don't think they're doing it. All these people are doing this just for the publicity. I don't know. I can't bring forth any proof of any of that. Just my feelings and my opinion. So if yours are different, let me know. And Gunn says when people are not raised by someone, we don't call them a stepmother here. Well, that's kind of a good rule. I kind of like that. Dee Presley told the psychics in the first one, the first seance. Or no, I guess maybe this is I don't know. They're talking about the first seance, and then they say Dee Presley told the psychics, "I won a real message from Elvis concerning my last conversation with him." So yeah, I think this is the first one. And Mickey quickly replied, "Elvis tells me that you talked about difficulties you were having with his father, of lawyers, papers, signatures. There was a judge, a court case. He was worried. His father is very ill. There is money coming to you, and Elvis promised to take care of you." Dee said, "The last conversation I had with Elvis, which was on the telephone, we talked about money and legal matters connected with my upcoming divorce from his father, Vernon. Just so that we all understand, Dee was not yet divorced from Vernon when Elvis passed away. They were still finalizing all that. So when we talk about stress that Elvis had, wasn't just his marital issues, it was also those of his father and Dee. And Dee's telling us that she talked to Elvis on the phone. That she intensified that stress for Elvis because she was worried about the way these material settlements would come out. And she says Elvis told me then, "Don't worry, Dee, I'll always look after you." The details of that conversation could only have been known by Elvis. So Dee says that Elvis said he was always going to take care of Dee. I'm not even sure that she's divorced from Vernon at the time. I don't think she is at the time that this seance is taking place. It almost feels like she's getting into print that Elvis made a promise and there was more money that needed to come out of this divorce settlement. Again, I can't say that for sure. That's wild speculation on my part. During the seance, young Jill Daphne suddenly covered her eyes with her hands and she moaned, "They're hurting, they're hurting. Why are my eyes hurting?" And Dee said, "During my last conversation with Elvis, he was crying and telling me, 'Oh, Dee, my eyes hurt so bad.' He had a painful eye condition that he tried to keep secret from almost everyone." I think she's talking about glaucoma. And we know, if you've watched all of my episodes, that there's one where we talk about a little cup that Dr. Nick carried around in his medical bag. And it was to treat Elvis's eyes. That they would wash his eyes with some kind of medical solution because of this pain. But Dee is on the telephone talking to Elvis about this money that she needs. And he's crying. And he's given her comfort, but he's also crying and saying that his eyes are painful. He's got a lot of pain. And Gunn's asking, was Dee psychic sick? And saying that that's why they had the painful eyes, is that they were sick. Well, I think they're trying to tell Dee that they're channeling Elvis. And they've gotten this pain of his eyes sent through to let her know that this is really Elvis. When the seance ended, Elvis's stepbrother, Rick, exclaimed, "I was amazed. I could feel his presence in the room. He was there." The psychic, Mickey, she said, "It was the most moving, shattering experience of my life. At times, I had no control over the words coming out of my mouth. He was there in that room. I've never been so convinced of anything in my entire life." David and Gunn are pointing out that glaucoma need eye drops every day. Callie says Elvis wasn't talking to these psychics, that the dead can't talk, that if anything was talking, it was a demon. Here's Dee. She's at this seance. So it's not just a seance, there's pictures being taken as well, which kind of what makes me feel there was some payments going on. Here's the actual picture. I don't know which of these ladies is which psychic, but you can see the two psychics. You can see the independent observer, who is the doctor from that church. Look that up again. Contemporary Community Church, Dr. H. Dix Archer. You can see Dee in the middle, and then there's this guy that's sitting next to her in a striped button-down shirt. That's got to be Tony Smith, Elvis's cousin. Have any of you ever seen this gentleman? That is, according to this newspaper article, Elvis's cousin, Tony Smith. Dee says Elvis is reunited with his mother and brother, and he's waiting for the day when all of us will be together again. Elvis was telling us not to feel sad at his death. He doesn't want us grieving for him now. Elvis wants us to be happy for him. I find it odd that Elvis would be waiting to be reunited with Dee, or that Dee would feel she wanted to be reunited with Elvis. But that's what she said here. And this is the actual newspaper article so that you can see it out of the National Enquirer. And now I'm going to play one of my shorts, which tells a quick story about Dee from probably sometime in the 1960s or the early 1970s. Don't really know for sure, but this is what I do know.
This Bible tells a family's story. Births, baptisms, marriages, all handwritten by Elvis Presley's stepmother. But one name is missing, Elvis, not listed anywhere. Elvis's father married Dee after meeting her in Germany. She and her sons moved into Graceland, forming a new family. Inside this Bible, Dee recorded her children, her ex-husband. But not Vernon's family, not Elvis. Was it a deliberate choice? Did Elvis simply not fit into the story Dee wanted to preserve? Sometimes what's left unsaid says everything.
And Nadia says that Dee told the truth and she's the only one who did to this day. There are not many people with that opinion, Nadia. And we really haven't looked at Dee as a group, so I don't want to push forth my own opinion yet. But I'm not sure that she could defend a lot of the things she said after Elvis passed away. I do believe that Dee, she truly did hurt and was in pain, and she had a lot of personal issues. I don't know that it excuses any behaviors of any kind. But she was being ousted by her husband at that moment as well. And we've seen so many people that have taken money from the National Enquirer and the Star now that that's really, I think, the saddest part of the whole story. Not just Dee, but all these other people. All of them taking this money right after Elvis has passed away. And why? What? They're releasing information that they know he would have wanted to be kept private. It's all very confusing during this period. And it just seems to spiral and spiral for right up to today. But this is where we're going to leave it for today. And I'm going to send you guys out with a song. And this is going to be a much more hopeful song. This is about Elvis and his search through many different spiritual texts. Something that would be directly opposed, I think, to the seance that Dee did. And this is Word on Fire. Until I see you all again, thank you so much for spending your time here with me today. And you all keep on taking care of business.
Black He cried.